Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. 2021 Week 5 rankings, starts, sits, and debate. As always, remember to smash the like button to the episode, subscribe to Mayo Media Network, and that will be all you really need to do. You can sub to the audio podcast and leave a rating and review up there as well, and become a member at runthesims.com. Go to runthesims.com/mayo to get yourself a discount if you want to run your own projections. You want to run single game simulations, get a DFS optimizer, betting tools. It is all up there. Runthesims.com. And if you like secret shows or stats like running back snap shares, player notes, all for free, hit the description. You will find the free link to sign up to the Mayo Media newsletter, which comes out 3 times a week. Highly suggest you do that, and you can get the spread show in there as well. DraftKings Listeners League link is now public. It is available in the description. Just hit the description. Tons of stuff down there. Get your spot now, because it tends to fill up by like Thursday morning. So if you want to play in a rake-free contest, the best tournament on DraftKings, suggest you do that right now. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com is here, as he has been every year for the past 8 years. What's going on, man? Tired yet?
Just a little bit. Just getting there. And I'm ornery because I already want to know why. Pat, why do you hate Saquon Barkley?
Do I hate Saquon Barkley?
Because you have him at 6. You must hate Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah. He's the absolute worst. Oh, I'm doing a new thing because I moved the waiver wire and recap show from Sunday evenings to early on Monday mornings. And I'm doing an advice feature at the end of it. So if you have some sort of, not fantasy football, if you send a fantasy football question to that account, I'm going to find your IP address and block you for life from everything. But it's supposed to be like a fun, like life advice segment where I give you terrible advice on your life advice. I actually got some good ones so far, but you can do that to thepatmayoexperience@gmail.com to get into that. Let's talk about the running back rankings, though. All of the updated rankings will be on dknation.com, and once again, you can find all of the links to those in the description. They change throughout the week once we get more injury news, because there's a lot of guys that are up in the air, mainly at receiver this week, not so much running back, but we'll see how it kind of plays out. Number 1 in the running back rankings is this French guy, Derek Henry. He is done number 1 against Jacksonville. Then you have Zeke, Eckler, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook. That's the top 5. Saquon, like you said, I hate him. He's number 6 in the running back rankings for the week. Najee Harris, Alvin Kamara, Darrell Henderson at number 9. Thursday night again at Seattle. And then DeAndre Swift at number 10. Felt like running backs were a little bit easier to rank at the top end this week versus receivers. When we start talking about receivers, there's a lot of like really good receivers who have, at least on paper, like not the greatest matchups in the world.
No, and yeah, we can talk about that when we get to there. The only one that I would probably push into your top 10 to bump out DeAndre Swift is Nick Chubb. He's at 12, and I understand that Kareem Hunt's been a thing, but Nick Chubb is still a thing of his own right. Like, Nick Chubb is still putting up RB1 numbers, and then there's always the week, like, that's his floor with what Kareem Hunt's doing. And the ceiling is if he gets a little bit more work or he gets his touchdown. I love DeAndre Swift, and it is a great matchup against the Vikings. It just, when it came down to a trust factor, that's the only one outside your top 10. Would I have Barkley a little bit higher? Sure. That's nitpicking. We spend not that much time on top 10 any given week because you're starting them and you're starting them and you're starting them all the way down through the 20s likely. But that would be the only one. I would just bump Chubb and bump down Swift, but I don't even care if you push back and say, I'm not changing that. It's not that big of a deal to me.
Yeah, he's still ranked as a running back 1. I'm good with it because you do have to factor in. I know what he did last week was his floor, but we see more floor performances than what we want out of Nick Chubb because of Kareem Hunt. Like, ideally, we want him to be Derrick Henry with Kareem Hunt playing a minor role, almost like what McNichols did last week against the Jets, where he's still going to get his 30 touches. He still gets his 20, but you just don't see... Basically, you need Chubb to break the big one because, honest to God, they need to stop using him at the goal line because it doesn't work.
Who, Chubb or Hunt?
Either the Browns would be better committing a holding penalty from first and goal from the 1-yard line and just playing from the 11.
To push him back out to the 10.
Yeah, they seem to be more effective scoring from there. Like, how many times have we seen this now with the Browns where they can't score from the 1-yard line? And then then there's a penalty. They get 4 more shots, and then it takes them to the very end to score if they score at all.
I'm legitimately laughing because I'm remembering Sunday sitting here with my buddies and watching that because that's on the side screen and watching that game and be like, they still have the ball. Like, how long have they been inside? Like, other games had already changed possessions and they're still inside the 5 on that one attempt.
And remember, maybe it's just two very specific examples, but the exact same thing happened last year. I want to say it was against the Rams or the Bears. I can't remember exactly who the opponent was. But it was like, and I think they gave the ball to Nick Chubb like 6 times from the 1 yard line.
Yeah, because they had penalties. They got 2 first downs out of that. It was, I want to say it was more than even 6 plays that they ran. I know he was 0 for 6, but yeah, it was penalties and they got 2 first downs off that series.
Tough scene. I want to spend more time on tight ends today for the first time ever. So it's not like I want to just skip on the running backs, but you don't have any problems with Henderson at number 9?
No, because this is one where I have been victory lapping Henderson because out of the entire running back crew from, again, another week when he's been healthy and questionable headed into that game, 1 of 5 running backs with over 80% of that backfield is his. No matter, like, if he's healthy, it's his. The only concern with Henderson, and it's a warranted concern, but it's the same with Chris Carson, who's splitting more, is Chris Carson's always been, he's great when he's healthy. Henderson's great. He just has to stay healthy. He deserves to be in the top 10.
He's healthy right now, so let's go with it. I'm still in on DeAndre Swift. Eventually, they're going to figure out to just really unleash him, but he's still getting the touches. He's still involved in the receiving game. Like, his floor, especially even in half-point PPR, I just find is so safe, and he has all of that upside. I think he's still running back 5 for the year, so it's not like he's bad by any means. It's weird because when you think of DeAndre Swift, it's like, oh, Jamal Williams is going to be a pest to him. And like, maybe like a few weeks a year, like Williams will outscore him, but Swift has been incredibly safe so far. So 11-20, we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire against the Buffalo Bills. I just project so many points in that game that let's go. Just play anyone you can.
Oh, great. So now we're going to get 13-10. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Nick Chubb, James Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris against Houston, Jonathan Taylor against Baltimore on Monday night, Chris Carson, Leonard Fournette, and Damian Williams. I currently have David Montgomery projected as out. That's why I have Damian Williams at number 20, who is dealing with a quad issue, but apparently that's going to be okay. I told you something was up with Carson. I don't think he's healthy.
It's more than that, and that's why, as you went through him. By the way, David Montgomery's out 4 to 5 weeks minimum.
Oh, is it?
So there you go. You don't even have to worry about having to update that. The Chris Carson one is interesting because from The Athletic, they just reported that Collins isn't coming for his job and not going to carve out a larger role. That's not my concern. I'm not even concerned about a larger role. I'm concerned about the role he already has. And I put this because I do a worry report in the waiver section every single week. And I do this worry report, and I broke down the fact that Chris Carson, since week 15 of 2019, hasn't carried the ball 20 times. Actually, since then, he hasn't even carried it 17 times. And actually, on top of that, Pat, through this year, even if you threw out week 4, the first 3 weeks, 13, 12, and 13, he's not even getting to 17. So Chris Carson, one of the most efficient running backs when healthy, one of the most efficient running backs on limited touches. That's why we weren't concerned, because he scores touchdown. He still gets 80 yards on 13 carries. That being said, even if he is healthy, his role has been carved out a lot more from this complementary piece, which they thought was going to be Penny, but it is now Alex Collins, who people look at and just assume he can't catch the ball, but he is a better pass catcher than people think. Chris Carson's too high for me. I would, no question in my mind, starting Damian Williams in that backfield, even with the thigh. He's, like I said, they said he should be fine. I would start Chuba Hubbard over him. I would start, now it starts getting dicey. Some of them I would, like I wouldn't start Pirine or Moss, but I would start Latavius Murray over him at this point. I know trying to trust this backfield after just 1 week, but at least Latavius Murray has the Gus Edwards upside. Like, we don't need you in the passing game, but it doesn't matter because this offense just produces touchdowns for running backs.
Is there that big of a difference between what Chris Carson is doing right now and what Jonathan Taylor is doing right now? I would concede that Jonathan Taylor, I have him ranked higher, obviously, but he's there. Marlon Mack is apparently going to be traded. And it's like, no, you can have the ball. We're going to showcase you and get you ready for this trade, Marlon Mack. Here's the ball a bunch of times. And Taylor was hyper efficient against the Dolphins, and that led to a good fantasy day. But if he's not going to be hyper efficient with these limited touches, like, it's tough treading.
I think watching that game, I think a little bit more is because the Colts were pretty much in control for a lot of it. I wouldn't expect that similar use for Mack. And Taylor did have some usage in the passing game as he continues. That would have 3 receptions in that game. But all that being said, it's not that different. Like, I'm not saying Taylor and Carson don't deserve similar concern, but I don't think it's as bad as Carson because at least you're still getting around those combined 16, 17, 18 touches for Taylor, where Carson's now down in the low teens. So that's the slight difference there.
All right, I'm going to keep Latavius Murray at 25 where I have him. But you said you wouldn't play Zach Moss over Chris Carson?
I go back and forth on that one.
right.
Zach Moss is touchdown dependent. It's actually, what's the difference between Zach Moss and Chris Carson right now? Because Zach Moss is getting 12 or 13 carries a week, and now all of a sudden it's consistent. So that might be your better question: is what's the difference between Carson and Moss?
I guess it's that the Seahawks offense is good. The Bills offense, at least so far, has been excellent, and they just score more points.
And it always starts with Josh Allen, which is what you said for the longest time.
It is, but at least it does seem like Zach Moss has carved out this role for himself, at least inside the 10.
Hey, we should go back to your preseason one where you told me I was an idiot for Christopher Zach Moss.
Hey, I call people idiots for a lot less, Jake. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's still super risky to start Zach Moss. I didn't think
100%. Yeah, let me make that clear. I wasn't campaigning for Zach Moss like as being higher at all.
But I will put let's see, Chris Carson at 22, one spot behind Chuba Hubbard. Chase Edmonds just continues to get it done every single week. I actually believe that Damian Harris might be the single best buy low candidate right now on the board.
I could not agree with you more. He is in my buy low. I even mentioned I do a buy low in the rankings column every Wednesday. I mentioned last week as in he's not buy low because he's going against the Buccaneers. So wait and buy him even lower after that game, because on top of it, it's just not the fact that nobody runs against the Buccaneers. He was the leading pass catching option on that team because J.J. Taylor fumbled, was actually behind Brandon Bolden and Jacob Johnson for opportunities. And Harris was out there the most as the pass catching option. Harris could be walking into a workhorse type of role going forward.
Absolutely. He ran 17 routes to Brandon Bolden's 11 in that spot. That was just super encouraging to see. It didn't manifest the way that everyone would have wanted it to if you started Damian Harris, but that's okay. The underlying numbers really rate out well for Harris moving forward. And this is a primo matchup against a terrible Texans team where they're probably just going to want to run the ball a whole bunch. So that 21 to 30 range now is, Edmonds is at 20, Chuba Hubbard 21, Carson, Zach Moss, Samaje Perine filling in for Joe Mixon, Latavius Murray, Josh Jacobs, Mike Davis, Cordarrelle Patterson, Mike Sanders, and Jamal Williams. Oh, do we get our yearly, Josh Jacobs, receiving game prowess, let's go. And then we go back to no catches again.
We do, but I think this is not even so much about Josh Jacobs, just the fact that Kenyon Drake is, honestly, if you need, if Damian Williams is out there, I would drop Drake. If you need, Joe Mixon's out, obviously this is your rankings with Joe Mixon being out, I would drop Drake for Samaje Perine at this point. Drake can't even get use when Josh Jacobs is out, and then he can't even get use in the game last night, depending on when you're watching this. In the game, they were down significantly in the second half. Drake is just, he's not involved. So I'm saying all that to say that Josh Jacobs is in the right spot, because it's not all of a sudden good Josh Jacobs is going to be catching 5 and 6 passes per game, but that more so that Drake is just, why are you even holding on to him at this point?
Am I a complete jamoke for having Mike Davis one spot ahead of Cordarrelle Patterson? Because I know that we look at the numbers and we see what Cordarrelle Patterson has done so far this year. And then trying to project things forward, we look at the snap share, we look at the routes, we look at how often he's scoring touchdowns versus how many touches and opportunities that he's getting. That leads almost every single person in the world to say this is completely unsustainable. And scoring 3 touchdowns a game is obviously even LaDainian Tomlinson couldn't do that. But being an impact fantasy contributor, which he has been probably the most valuable player you could have on your roster right now in fantasy football, based on where he was either picked up or drafted in the 25th round. However you got your hands on Cordarrelle Patterson, it's working out really well for you right now. Problem is, it does seem like this offense is kind of designed to get him the ball in the right spots to score touchdowns.
It does, and banking on any player to score over 10% of their touches is absurd. That just doesn't happen. I would even go back to everybody that's like, oh, LeGarrette Blount, and talking about other players compared to, I forget, somebody was trying to compare LeGarrette Blount, and I was like, people forget he had 299 carries that year. So even that's nowhere near 10% because he wasn't scoring 30 touchdowns. So yes, the math, what we know about football, what we know about everything, he should not score 10% of the time. Actually, I think it's up at 11% of the time. But what you said is why I don't think where you have him is wrong. He's still an RB3 because if he doesn't score, that's the downside.
Nothing.
We know that.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, it's a lesser, well, no, it's basically James White If you're playing like non-PPR, you never played James White because you knew if he didn't score, he got you 3 points. It was about the receptions, and that's what Cordarrelle Patterson is. I would say what you alluded to.
I would push back on that a little bit because he's getting legitimate wide receiver, like lining up as a receiver routes as well. He has more ways to score and touch the ball than James
Cordarrelle
White
Patterson
ever did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's where I was going with it. And so I was going to say to your I was going to say what you added on and what you were explaining is that they're finding ways to use him, and they are finding ways to use him similar to, we talk about the Ravens backfield being touchdown reliant, but that's because they turn to their running backs inside the red zone and they rely on them. And that offense produces touchdowns for the running backs because of how it's built. You can talk about Adam Thielen and the fact that he's touchdown reliant, but that offense and Kirk Cousins looks to him in the red zone because that's how they're constructed to look for it, and they like going to Thielen. So sometimes touchdown variance can be something, shouldn't be completely like, everybody falls into the 3% range. That being said, Cordarrelle Patterson obviously won't sustain this level, but to have him as an RB3, I think is where we just kind of have to keep him going forward.
Unless he really ends up proving himself. I've always played under this impression. I think this is one of the few last vestiges of season-long fantasy football strategy that no one exploits, because everyone wants fantasy football to be like fantasy baseball, where, oh man, look at his batting average of balls in play. It's 100 points higher than it's going to be. There is absolutely no way for that person to sustain that batting average. It's just never going to happen. Or if you look at FIP and XFIP for a pitcher, it's like, well, his FIP is 650 and his ERA is 120. Something's going to go wrong here for this guy. Let's sell him right now. People can look at that, and people have looked at that with Cordarrelle Patterson and rightfully said, this is a completely unsustainable pace. However, in football, the sample is so limited, and there's so many different variables versus so many of the other fantasy sports that everyone has properly identified Cordarrelle Patterson as a sell high, which means that if you try to sell Cordarrelle Patterson, you're not going to get whatever you think you're going to get for him. You're going to get a whole bunch of low ball off. And maybe listen, this is not going to be every single case, but if you play with smart people, no one is going to pay you for Cordarrelle Patterson. Would it be worth it to buy high on Cordarrelle Patterson, knowing that you wouldn't have to pay actually with the sticker prices? You can pay a whole lot less than that and just try to ride this out, and hopefully this is the thing all year, because we've seen this happen in football a whole bunch of times. It's not like Chris Shelton hit 17 home runs in April and then he's in the minor leagues by June.
Nobody knows who the hell you're talking about, by the way, for watching the football show. But good call out there. So what's buy high? Or you want to talk running back versus running back? Would you say like Chuba Hubbard, with the fact that Christian McCaffrey's coming back, is like Chuba Hubbard for Patterson? Is that buying high? Like, what? I'm trying to get a range to think of, like, because I agree with you. The buying high isn't a bad option to go with, because you probably get flex value running back the rest of the season, even with the low weeks. But I'm trying to, that's the thing, is I'm trying to get in my mind of like, what's a buy high for this situation.
Well, what do you think are like the most common Cordarrelle Patterson trades right now?
I would say, like, for running backs, you're probably not getting a running back for a running back, just because.
Like, do you think that people are like, hey,
like, okay, Marvin Jones seems like a Marvin Jones for Cordarrelle Patterson seems like a one that a lot of people would make.
I mean, that feels like a wash to me.
That's what I'm trying to find washy ones.
Especially because Chark is out, that the role for, especially being in that garbage time offense. But I mean, you can roll the dice. I just happen to like Marvin Jones a lot, is kind of the thing. But what if you had like Miles Sanders?
I'd take Cordarrelle Patterson. You can't use Miles Sanders unless you think they're going to be winning a game by a significant amount, honestly.
Yeah, I have Sanders at 29 this week. I have Patterson at 28. Now, this could go completely, tits up, and Sanders ends up being awesome because we know his breakaway potential, but he just never touches the ball. And then you have Patterson, who could go back to being Cordarrelle Patterson. Here we go. But I feel like that's a trade that if I was trying to sell Cordarrelle Patterson and someone offered me Miles Sanders, just looking at those two names, I feel like that would be accepted instantaneously.
Sure. I actually pulled up the Yahoo trade tracker to see some of the trades that Cordarrelle Patterson's been involved with. So you have Cordarrelle Patterson and Kenny Golladay going combined for Antonio Gibson. Which side would you take in that one?
Probably want Gibson, although I think that's fair.
And that's what there's a straight up trade of Cordarrelle Patterson for Joe Mixon because of his injury. Cordarrelle Patterson for Dalvin Cook. That was the one I was going to mention. Somebody tweeted me that, and Joe Pisapia. I know you just shook your head, but I'm just saying, like, those are the inexperienced leagues. How about Cordarrelle Patterson for Tyler Boyd?
think I might gamble on Cordarrelle Patterson there. I guess it would depend if I needed a receiver or a running back. I guess I could play Patterson.
Cordarrelle Patterson and Josh Jacobs for DeAndre Swift.
Oh, I like that. I would want to get Swift there.
See, but I wanted to bring those up because this is exactly your point that you're making here. And that's what you can do. Here's Cordarrelle Patterson for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that's an absurd, inexperienced league situation. I think some people are genuinely concerned about Hopkins not even having 20% of the target share. And if you can get Hopkins, but on the flip side, the trade right underneath it is Chris Carson for Cordarrelle Patterson. And whew, as crazy as the Patterson situations we're talking about is like he can't sustain this. That made me think, and I think that's where we are in Patterson. If I'm thinking Carson or Patterson, and I have to think about it, that's where we are now.
Well, I guess it goes one of two ways. If you have Cordarrelle Patterson and someone offers you Delvin Cook, you're like, it's an auto accept. Let's pretend we don't live in a world where those type of trades
where people are that crazy
exist. Yeah, let's talk about we play in a normal league where like normal people who pay attention are in this league. And you have Cordarrelle Patterson. And like I said, he's been identified by you go on Twitter, you go on The Athletic, you listen to this show, you read ESPN, everyone will identify Cordarrelle Patterson as a sell high. So everyone knows that going into it, by and large. And even people who don't read anything, they can look at the situation, look at the numbers, and identify him as a sell high. So I think that there is a way that you can utilize that information to either acquire him or sell him. Like, I like that idea of pairing him with someone else who's sort of like a name. Like if you had Cordarrelle Patterson and Chris Carson to upgrade at running back. I think that's a trade that could go through because like, oh yeah, maybe this could go through. But if you were trying to get him, if you're not... The thing is, I just don't think you're going to see the offers for Cordarrelle Patterson of what the owner would theoretically value him as because the market has been depreciated so much because of all the hype around him that you could potentially squeeze one of your guys that you don't like on your team who still has some sort of cachet and name value away from the Cordarrelle Patterson owner for realistically less than he's probably worth.
Yeah, so I just found a running back in your rankings who, one, I think is too low, but two, I think comes into this conversation. Is which side would you want of Trey Sermon and Cordarrelle Patterson?
Patterson.
See? And
I have, in fairness to my Trey Sermon ranking, I have Elijah Mitchell in the rankings.
Okay. I was looking for Mitchell. I was trying to find him. I
just have him down a bit. I just don't know.
Oh, yeah, I'm 41.
Yeah. So, well, we can get to that part of it right now. We go 31, James Conner. The touchdown, man, he's killing all of our Arizona shares with all of our good players. Stupid James Conner.
Kyler Murray. Killing his rushing touchdowns.
Tony Pollard, J.D. McKissick. I like this matchup for McKissick against New Orleans. Kenneth Gainwell, he's more productive than Miles Sanders. Michael Hurricane Carter, your guy. Trey Sermon, Devin Singletary, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, Naheem Hines. I figured you would press back on Trey Sermon, and I found him a very difficult player to rank this week. Obviously, if Eli Mitchell misses this week as well, he is most definitely going to move up in the rankings. But I think that we saw sort of the milquetoast type games that he can provide for you this weekend. And by and large, he had a very good game last weekend. He got all the touches, he had over 80 yards, but that's all he is legit doing. Because especially with, I feel like Trey Lance is going to have a lot of Josh Allen syndrome inside the red zone if that ever happens, and he's just going to call his own number. So I think that the touchdown equity is going to be hurt. It doesn't seem like Trey Lance is ever going to pass to any running back not named Kyle Juszczyk. And now you have Eli Mitchell coming back, if he is back, that he's going to take some of the share. For all we know, he could be the lead back. We don't know how this backfield is going to turn out. And this is assuming that Trey Lance plays as well and not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. So that's where I want to go with it. So this is why I would push back even if Elijah Mitchell's out there. For one, I don't disagree with this at all. I know we could get Shanahan as we always do. He was literally backed into a corner and forced to use Trey Sermon. We know that. The reason I say this is because I broke down Trey Sermon and the reason speculation why he wasn't on the field, and part of it comes to what Bill Belichick did in 15 pages of an answer, and I kind of broke down on the podcast with Brandon Funston last week and explained it in like 1 minute. But it's just when it comes players coming from college at the running back position, it's not just can you pass block. That's one aspect of 4 pieces in that. You can't just I could flatten a linebacker, but if I don't know where my assignment is, I don't know where the audible might take me, I don't know when I need to get in front of the quarterback to the other side if the play is changed. There's so much more to it that college players generally, even if they are good pass blockers, will struggle to acclimate to that in the NFL, and that's why you see some rookies take longer to get on the field. You add that to the fact that this is the 4th piece, is where your quarterback played in college. Trey Sermon played a lot with a quarterback not under center, barely ever under center. That's a big transition for any running back in general on top of it. So Trey Sermon had all that going against him. And where I say this is actually a positive is because you just saw how good he was with Lance under center. He has the quarterback back next to him, or at least he's back there with him in that shotgun formation. So I think that Lance is better for Sermon. If Garoppolo was back under center, I'd be back towards Mitchell. But that's why. So I actually think the Lance helps Sermon because you just saw how effective he was in the second half. And the Arizona Cardinals, top 3 defense in yards after contact and plays for 10-plus yards rushing. So it's a very exploitable matchup on top of it.
I agree the matchup's good and that Lance does help Trey Sermon here. But once again, I think that if you're essentially looking at a worse Josh Jacobs situation in the receiving game, so there's literally no floor for him. He could lose carries if Mitchell ends up coming back, like I mentioned. And I just think that multiple touchdowns are going to be so difficult for him in this spot when Lance can call his own number. And you know that he wants to call his own number. And I think you're going to see, if Lance is starting in this game, a lot of Kyle Juszczyk as the primary blocking back for Trey Lance.
See, I think that the fact that Lance, again, with the Sermon is more comfortable with the quarterback in that position. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I just am making my case for my side of it. And of all these rankings, for the fact that he's the lead, in my opinion, with Elijah Mitchell. And look, if you think I'm stupid and I'm going to get Shanahan again, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word. I understand that risk is there if Mitchell is playing. Even if Mitchell is playing, I would start Sermon over Miles Sanders because there's no way I'm trusting Miles Sanders at this point. I don't even know if the Eagles are the favorite in this game. And I'm not talking about what Vegas says. I'm just talking about in my own opinion. I don't know that the Eagles win a game over Carolina at this point. So unless the Sanders situation is they're walking away with, like if they're facing the Lions, sure, put Sanders higher. Anything else, and I'd rather trust Sermon for what we saw with Lance, even under Shanahan, over Sanders. And I stopped there. I think that Cordarrelle Patterson is actually the safer play than Sermon at this point.
I see. That's exactly the spot where I was going to move Sermon to if Elijah Mitchell is inactive this week. I'd move him up to number 29. And
I'd go even higher.
I would not. And I'm going to keep Sermon where he is because I just do not trust this backfield whatsoever. That has to factor.
I'd put, just so you know, if there is no Elijah Mitchell, I'd put Sermon all the way up ahead of Chris Carson at 22.
All right, yeah, that's not happening for me. But Jake's more accurate than I am, so you should probably listen to him on that regard. Wide receiver rankings for the week. Devontae Adams, he's like perma number 1. Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs, DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson. And this is where I think it starts, like, there's guys that you're most definitely going to play.
Fuzzy?
I think it gets fuzzy at number 7. Like, you're not sitting Hopkins or McLaurin or Debo or Keenan Allen, the next guys, or even, I mean, Ridley has a nice matchup. He just hasn't been any good. Mike Williams, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Adam Thielen, good matchup, but if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's kind of useless. Tyler Lockett, is he banged up? It's still a bad matchup, although I think that his matchup is technically better than DK Metcalf's matchup, based on how the Rams actually set up, but who knows if they're actually going to utilize him that way or if he's 100%. I don't know. Amari Cooper, not a great matchup. Godwin has a good matchup in the slot against Miami. I also like Cameron Brate this week, but I don't have the guts to rank him higher, but every single week we see where Miami gets beat up between the hashes. Every week.
Every week. I was laughing at the fact that you were keeping the cadence going with every single one of them. That's what I was laughing at. You're not wrong. I don't really have a problem with anybody in this range. I mean, if I want to nitpick and see what my projections or ranks end up being, it's not going to be anything great. Like, it might be Chris Godwin's at 14 and Lockett's at 18. Like, going straight through your list, there's nobody that is that big of an outlier. I think the biggest one here, and I'm going to kind of give a question to you, even though it's your show, is the Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel situation, because you do have Deebo as a top 10, and I'm not arguing against that. It's more the fact that, like, it looked like Brandon Ayuk was getting back to being healthy and was getting back to being involved, and then Trent Sherfield was on his heels for opportunities, and Ayuk was essentially left out in that entire game. Like, is it just Deebo and nobody else? Because that's how you rank them.
Yes. That's exactly how that's how the fantasy production has gone so far this season. When I came into the year and we ranked them and I referred to Deebo Samuel as a mini TO, I believe that. That's why I kept drafting Deebo Samuel. I just think he's awesome. I think that he was hurt with a hamstring injury last year.
Don't disagree.
And he is perfect for Trey Lance and the routes that, like, he's going to run these short routes and he can do so much after the catch. I think Ayuk's going to be fine, but there's clearly a problem right now. And they're using Mohamed Sanu essentially more than they're using him in the passing game. That's a problem.
Snoo.
Yeah, snoo. So if I can essentially lock in Deebo for 10 to 12 targets, which he's getting every single game, he's sort of like the good Michael Pittman, then I'm playing him every single week. He's an elite player.
Oh, there's no question about the eliteness. The biggest thing is the fact that Ayuk looked so good last year playing on the outside. And like you said, it might be something else underlying. He's still maybe not 100%. Or Shanahan's doing what he does to running backs, and he's doing it at wide receiver too. But the good news is that Samuel is where you have him. He's just been consistent. Calvin Ridley, by the way. Oh, I did want to bring this up, and I was saving it for the wide receivers, and you talked about the baseball and bringing that all in. And I wanted to point out the fact, so I started including a piece in the waiver column. It's unrealized air yards. It's air yards minus receiving yards. Like all these receiving yards that you're leaving on the field because Odell Beckham, as we just saw last week, if Baker Mayfield just knows how to throw the effing ball, Odell Beckham has a giant day, and nobody cares about Odell Beckham. I wanted to bring that up because Calvin Ridley is actually top 5. Now, that being said, as you pointed out, baseball is much more predictable. Unrealized air yards are a good nugget. They're not 100% predictable because Henry Ruggs last year was top 10. Derek Carr just could not get on the same page. So that's where I wanted to actually ask you another question, Pat. Does the top 5 air yards left on the field for Calvin Ridley point to what you think could be better days, or do you just think that Matt Ryan and this offense is broken?
I think it's broken, and I think that they've shifted what they want to do. That's why you're seeing, I think that Arthur Smith came in there and be like, man, Matt Ryan can't throw the ball more than 15 yards with any sort of accuracy anymore. Or that's what all these Ridley deep shots are. They're just floaters out there. And maybe he can go, he's dropped a few, some of the onus is on Ridley. He hasn't been great, but there's so many of these routes that he's just waiting for the ball to get there. And by the time the ball gets there, there's 3 guys on him. And
you want to talk about a floater?
It is an uncatchable
How about that one to
ball.
Debo?
Wow.
That Debo was he ran as hard as he had to run because he had to wait for the damn ball to get there.
It's funny because Ridley it's actually a problem. And this can work one of 2 ways, and you need to know the coverage and who the defense is and the receiver that you have. Because a lot of the time, if you're getting into a one-on-one situation with the deep ball, the move actually is to throw it a bit short and realize and have that connection with your receiver to know that, because they can just stop and catch the ball, and it's an easy completion. But when you have your man beat by so much and you need to hit him in stride, which is a much harder throw, and you're not dead on the money, that ball needs to be perfect, and then everyone can congregate on you at the same time. It's funny how beating your man too badly can be sort of an issue on deep balls, where if it's a one-on-one, you can almost adjust to the ball in the air and have it thrown short. How many times have we seen that?
Or a pass interference last night in the Monday Night Football game. You could just get that one where you underthrow it, and then you have to adjust back, and then the defender just runs straight through you. Oh, that's Odell Beckham's been dealing with that since Eli Manning. I mean, how many times did Eli Manning miss Odell Beckham wide open downfield by 5 yards left or right, or even underthrown, and he doesn't even come down with it? But it's a great point that you're making, and that's what happened with that's the difference between the Odell Beckham and the Debo touchdown. That's the difference between the two.
The most egregious one last week, because I lost my over-under by a half yard, because of that, but and lost. I won on DraftKings, but this would have really helped me win a lot more money. Was Sam Darnold's overthrow of Robbie Anderson when he made the double move at the end of the game to come back against Dallas? It's oh my God, he's wide open, and it wasn't. It was like a 20-yard throw, and and it wasn't like it was just off the fingertips. It was a good yard and a half, 2 yards past him, and it's he had him. That was the play. That was the one play we were waiting for all game. It was there. He was wide open, and just classic Darnold.
And that's what it was. It was classic Darnold. Darnold just needs to keep running the ball. He's their best touchdown option.
That's true. Oh, I want to remind everyone, if you don't have sports betting in your state, now you should just go to DraftKings Sportsbook and go play up there if you do have it. If not, prizepicks.com has over-unders, fantasy props, all the yardage available in a ton more states. Use code MMN at deposit if you want to get in, and you'll get a deposit match of up to $100. Also, if you make your entry for a Thursday guys and Sunday guys, no Monday Night Football guys, if you make an entry for $7.11, that technically qualifies you for the Mayo Media Network pool, and because you're a part of that pool, you're eligible for this bonus. So if you get all 5 right, you get 10 times your money, so you win $71. But because you did a $7.11 entry, if you get 5 of 5, you get your $71 and a bonus 50. 17 times your money on a $7.11 entry. So this isn't going to take a lot of money throughout the course of the year. If you have $100 to lose, you deposit your $100, you get the extra 100 from the bonus. You're going to be good for the entire year. It's a great way to play low stakes and actually build a bankroll, like a pretty good bankroll moving forward. So I highly recommend everyone do that. prizepicks.com, code MMN when you deposit. You can check the link down in the description right now and just click through right there. Brennan Cooks, I have at 19, one pass. Chris Godwin, I feel like this is the next tier of guys down. So it's Cooks, Jamar Chase. I have T. Higgins back, I think. Yeah, I do. Do I? Higgins.
32.
Yeah, I have him at 32. So I have Jamar Chase still because of the big playability at number 20. Deontay Johnson at number 21. Mike Evans, Hollywood Brown, the aforementioned Michael Pittman, Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, Tyler Boyd, Devonta Smith, Marvin Jones, Harry, Corey Davis, Kenny Golladay at number 31, T. Higgins at 32, Cortland Sutton, Emmanuel Sanders, Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, finally got there last week. Cole Beasley, Jamison Crowder, Henry Ruggs, Robbie Anderson, and Jacoby Myers as the top 40. I have Teddy Bridgewater as if he's starting right now. All the Denver guys take a hit if Lock's in.
Okay, so I actually don't think Cortland Sutton takes a hit with Drew Lock. The efficiency is going to be ridiculously bad, but the fact is Drew Lock's taking more shots than Sutton. To go back to that list I was telling you about before, Cortland Sutton is number 1 in the league in unrealized air yards. And sure, that comes down to the team, the play that he's had, but that's where they're using him, and that's where they continue to use him. And I say that to say this, Devonta Smith's giant game that we just had was top 5 before that game. So these are the things, again, it's not perfect, but these are where you look for opportunities and how these players are being used. I think Cortland Sutton is one of the best buy lows at wide receiver. I would have him a little bit higher, and I would call me crazy, but I would have him higher than Kenny Golladay. I know Kenny Golladay has been a thing the past 2 weeks, especially with no Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, but holy crap, Diggs has immediately turned into all of a sudden a shutdown quarter who they are sending as a shadow. He is shadowing people, and he is doing a really damn good job of it. I wouldn't push Kenny Golladay down to the 40s, but I would go Sutton over him. I would definitely go Laviska Shenault, who you have way down there, over him, and probably maybe that's about it. Maybe like T. Higgins and Emmanuel Sanders, but I would move him down a couple spots, Sutton up a couple spots, and Shenault way higher.
All right, I will defer to you on this one. So Kenny Golladay or Cole Beasley?
Are you full point PPR? Then Cole Beasley. Half point PPR, I'll still give Golladay the slight edge.
Jamison Crowder or Kenny Golladay?
Man, I'm going Crowder. If Crowder's healthy,
Crowder and Cole Beasley
up top 30 numbers.
Crowder and Beasley are like the same guy.
Yeah, but Crowder's got a little bit more touchdown upside. He just knows how to score.
Yeah, maybe it's not like Cole Beasley never scores.
Oh wait, that's the London game too. London's always weird. London's either going to be 40 points or 10.
That's true. Henry,
there's no in between with London.
Ruggs or Golladay?
Golladay. And I love Ruggs, you know that.
All right, so I'll put him just one spot after Jamison Crowder. That will make him number 37. So how far up do you want me to put Shenault against Tennessee? Obviously, no DJ Chark. Would you go?
I'd put him in front of Robert Woods.
I was going to say, would you go Robert Woods or Shenault?
I would go Shenault.
Are the Jags just going to be a disaster this week with the Nick Saban stuff?
The Nick Saban, or you mean the Urban Meyer stuff?
The Urban Meyer stuff, yeah, sorry.
I mean, hey, man, Nick Saban might be a disaster too. I just think they're just a disaster, period. But like Trevor Lawrence is still going to go out there and try to play. And James Robinson and Shenault, they're all still going to try and do their thing. Whether or not he's lost the locker room, these are players out there on the field that still try to win games. This is why you go back to when this isn't a name drop, but this is somebody who's played football. And I asked D'Angelo Williams, and I said, does that ever really happen where teams understand that they're better off if they get a better draft pick? And he said, you can never get a team, any sport, to tank because it starts with the front office. If the front office is on board, you still have to get the coaches on board who are playing or coaching for their jobs. And even if you lose the coaches and you have both of those, you still have to convince the players not to play well for their jobs. So the Jaguars players are still going to give their best, whether or not they've lost the locker room with Urban Meyer. So it's going to be gross from what we hear in the reports, but the team's still going to give 100%.
You came on this show last week and sold me on old Mooney Tunes in his matchup against the Lions. And then I stole that take and used it as my own on the DraftKings show and printed money, Jake, so thank you.
You're well. I still didn't rank him in front of Allen Robinson, which was the better play.
That's so hard to do though. Like that's a bias that everyone suffers from. It's early draft pick syndrome. Like I have Allen Robinson at 49 this week.
Hey, if it's Fields, that's warranted. If it's Dalton, I'm going back to Allen Robinson over Darnell
I agree.
Mooney.
I have Fields in as the quarterback right now.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to is Laser said, hey, you get to run plays, Fields. Plays plural, but you also get to run. We're sending your speedy guys downfield to take advantage of that giant and great arm you have, which, by the way, everybody's going on and on and on about Zach Wilson doing that rollout in the gym. And they throw. Justin Fields had already done that 2 weeks before that. Justin Fields had already done that at college. Mooney works great with Fields. Allen Robinson probably behooved him to have, heck, Nick Foles would probably be better for them just because of the quarterback style.
41-50. Now it's Jacoby Myers at number 41 because Chenault moved up to number 34. Myers, Renfro, Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle. Parker makes such good catches. Like he's the Brandon Lloyd for our times. That the harder the catch is, the more he's going to make it.
And no Will Fuller.
No, I have is Fuller officially out? Because I still have him in, just weighed down because he's dealing with a chest and a foot now, and a hand.
I think I would be shocked if he plays. But yeah, he's not officially out, but yeah.
All right, so Parker, Waddle, Mooney Tunes, Khalif Raymond, who they're just using in Detroit. Someone's got to catch the ball. Turns out it's him. Tim Patrick, Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then into Josh Reynolds, Nick Westbrook-Ikina, Kadarius Toney, Van Jefferson, John Ross. Might be a really nice. If you think that Diggs does take out Kenny Golladay, I do think you can take the top of this Dallas defense. Just people are not connecting on it outside of Justin Herbert. That Ross is kind of the guy, isn't he? I mean, I would not feel very comfortable starting him in my fantasy lineup, but like as a DraftKings like outlier deep play guy, I could see it happening.
Yeah, and that's where I definitively got something wrong, mostly because this team reports and everybody covering it was, Colin Johnson will replace Slayton, and it wasn't. He wasn't even fourth because C.J. Board was out there more than Colin Johnson. I don't understand. Maybe he's a terrible locker room presence. I don't know what's going on with Colin Johnson that he went from filling in to being fifth on the depth chart. John Ross's first game back, he's active and doing what he's doing. So all that being said, I think Toney is intriguing as long as Shepard is out. And what you just said about Ross. Now, Ross is a great DFS DraftKings play if you just need that boomer bust in your wide receiver 4/flex spot. But understand, we know John Ross is essentially Deshaun Jackson, where, 1 for 13 is very doable as well.
Yeah, or 0 on no targets.
I mean, that's sure, of course. But at least he was on the field more than he was the third most used wide receiver on the field in snaps and routes, which is just still inexplicable. I could understand like if he was splitting with Colin Johnson. I don't understand what the hell happened with that one. That's just so weird.
Zacchaeus should have had a big game last week. He had like 2 really unfortunate drops, but now he gets the Jets. Again, these are all guys, like the guys from like 50 below. Like if you're really in a pinch, like AJ Green's been really good. Quintus Cephas continues to do things. Obviously, Van Jefferson's either boom or complete busto. Rondell Moore, KJ Osborne, Jalen Reagor is like.
No, you skipped over the one. I would actually have Curtis Samuel higher. I would have Curtis Samuel up by.
I was worried that would he run the 5th most routes of all the receivers? I know he's going to end up running more. I figured that once they activated him last week, that it'd be full go for him, and it just wasn't. So I wonder if they're working him back in because they lost they lost everyone at receiver. Like even Cam Sims is out now.
No, well, and that's part of it. Is there was mixed reports, but the one, and I think it might have been from the Athletic, because somebody said he's not 100%. They're working him back in. I'm not expecting him to be out there for 90% of the snaps in the second game back, but I am expecting more. No Logan Thomas, as you just mentioned, lost Sims too. I wasn't going to go that high. I would still start Van Jefferson in front of him, even as the third. Well, I mean, you could argue with his usage recently that he's the second, but I would put him 1 spot in front of Ross. Like, not a huge jump. He's at 55. That's still not even top 50. But over some of those names like Quintus, you know what? AJ Green.
I know. I don't know what to do. He's been really
the past
good.
2 weeks. In the past 2 weeks, he's out there being as targeted as, and I know Hopkins was banged up 2 weeks ago and essentially a decoy in that game, but AJ Green's life is back. I would tell you this much. You have Christian Kirk at 48. I'm starting AJ Green over Christian Kirk right now.
I can switch those two guys. I just felt like you can. San Francisco also strikes me as a team that you can catch napping a little bit deep, and if it's gonna be deep, I always just go to Christian Kirk on the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's certainly fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
AJ. Any more wide receivers you want to talk about? Because it would be a nice time for me to go get my food that just arrived at my door early.
All right. Well, back after these messages. What'd you get to eat?
I was about to say Chinese, Mexican.
You got Mexican food. You got Mexican-Chinese fusion is what you got?
Mexican, that would be gross.
Who knows? People can do some pretty crazy things with all of this. Tight ends, which I did want to talk about, so let's get into it. Let's go over the rankings very quickly. Kelsey at number 1, Waller at number 2. Thank God, I thought Waller was going to be like out for the year in the Monday night game after he just landed awkwardly. Then he came back in. Everything was great. Hawkinson, Kittle, Andrews, Pitts, still Pitts, Higbee, and then there's this range. Basically after Kittle, so you have your big 4, then you have Mark Andrews, who I do think stability-wise, if we're playing all 17 weeks with a tight end, you're going to be playing Mark Andrews. Probably the same for Pitts because he just has unrealized fantasy points on the board. You watch him, you're like, he should be scoring 20 points a week, and he's not because it's the stupid Falcons and stupid Matt Ryan, and he can only throw to Cordarrelle Patterson. But now you have like Higbee, Schultz, Knox, Gesicki, Fant. I have Ricky Seals-Jones replacing Logan Thomas at number 12. He's the mid on DraftKings this week, too. He's going to be running some routes against the Saints, although they have very good linebackers, so that's a bit tough. Tyler Conklin, Ferkser with all the injuries because I didn't rank A.J. Brown or Julio Jones. Max Williams, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry. I think you go from 7 to 17 there. There's the group of these guys. Who's for real out of these guys? Like, is Dawson Knox and Dalton Schultz for real? Because no one covers Dalton Schultz. He cannot be this open every play. It's impossible.
Well, sometimes it's Blake Jarwin, too. They both scored in that game. And the problem is, between the two of them, there's not quite a 50-50, but it's almost still a 50-50 of the opportunities that they're bidding on the field. So I thought you were going to say doesn't get covered. I thought you were going to talk about Dawson Knox. They get in the red zone, and it's like teams don't even know he exists. It's just like, oh, look, there's Dawson Knox standing wide open in the end zone. Why is nobody on him? And then it's when he gets his touchdown. Dawson Knox has actually got more, a double the red zone and end zone targets, actually triple the red zone targets because he only has 1 of Robert Tonyan. Like Dawson Knox has essentially become Robert Tonyan this year. So I think Schultz, Knox are legit. Gesicki, I feel like he's about to go on a 2-game stretch where he only scores like 5 points.
Oh, no, hold on. I am big on as long as Brissett is starting, Mike Gesicki and his route running of 9 yards down the field is perfect for Jacoby Brissett.
And so I was gonna say if Tua's coming back, yeah, Brissett's definitely helping Gesicki, and also potentially Will Fuller. Not that that's a huge, because the big thing is still that Jalen Waddle spends a lot of time in the slot where Gesicki does some work. But my point being is Schultz, Knox, Gesicki, Fant, yes, I think those are the 4 that are quote unquote real-ish, and then after that it gets really messy. And the fact that I wouldn't even try to call any of them real. Even Conklin was everybody's favorite streamer last week and did essentially nothing.
Are you good with Ricky Seals-Jones being a streamer this week?
Not that high, but as a streamer, yeah. I wouldn't have him that high. I would start Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is taken over as figuring out that situation. He's been the one that's been used more, which a lot of people thought, including myself, that Jonnu Smith would be running more routes, but Jonnu can't stay healthy, speaking of which. And now that he's back, kind of already got usurped by Henry. But Ricky Seals-Jones inside the top 20, don't have a problem with.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to, like, if I'm streaming a tight end this week, that's the tight end that I'm streaming. If I'm going to pay down on DraftKings, he's the Will Disley of this week. And Will Disley sucked last week, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, that's the conversation.
I don't know how many times I tell people stop trying to chase the Seahawks tight ends. God.
Well, he was the only Seahawks tight end who was essentially out there.
I know, but we do this every single year. Yes, the Seahawks combined tight ends at the end of the year probably have 8 or 9 good games, but it's not always the same guy, and it's not always predicted. It's especially like taking Jared Cook and splitting him into 2 people.
I get that, but we took the one guy who was the lead and got rid of him, and there's no Hollander around, or
but that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not even predictable when it's down to 1. That's what I was saying.
Well, no, he had a bad game, but I felt like the process was right on Will Disley. He was out.
Oh, sure, yeah. But how many years did we say the process was right on Jared Cook and you can't get him right?
I suppose that's true. Yeah, he played 82% of the snaps last week. Like, I mean, for a guy that you could pick up in the Seahawks offense that ended up scoring, 28 points, and they threw a bunch, I would run that back again. Maybe you'd end up with a better outcome. Sure.
Yeah, the process. Yeah, again, I'm not questioning the process. I'm just questioning chasing those teams. It's the same reason we didn't want to chase, you and I didn't want to chase Jared Cook as a tight end 1 for trying to figure out what games he was going to be good for. The process can be right, but the situation can still be infuriating.
I get that the situation is normally infuriating. It's just the situation as it unfolded last week very clearly pointed to one guy. He just didn't do anything.
Sure. You know who did do well? It's been a while since it happened because it was Thursday night, but your Secret of the Uzma out there.
He did. If T. Higgins misses this week as well, then I will bump up CJ Secret of the Uzma much, much higher. But if T. Higgins is back, like that's why he
over Max with 2 X's?
Oh, yeah. If he's out, I'd probably move him above Ricky Seals-Jones and make him number 12.
Okay.
I'm trying to find touchdowns here.
I know. I am wearing my Teenage Mutant Ninja Squirtles shirt for the Secret of the Uzma, so there you go.
Just combining all of your favorite things in the world, huh? Pokemon.
I didn't even really like Pokemon. I just like the fact that it was a crossover t-shirt.
Quarterbacks for the week. Got Josh Allen at number 1. Feels right. Kyler Murray at number 2. Mahomes, Lamar. Dak Prescott at number 5. Then I go the Hurts, Squirts, Herbert, Cousins, Darnold, Tom Brady. That's the top 10. Then we got Stafford, Russ Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Ryan, Joe Burrow, and Trey Lance at number 20. The Trey Lance ranking is just going to be wrong. I'm telling you that now. He's going to be like 5th or 32nd.
That's certainly true. I would have Trey Lance higher, not by much. I would play him at this point for the upside. I'm playing him over Tannehill. But I would have Tannehill behind Daniel Jones, so that's the only difference there. So I would go Daniel Jones 15, then Trey Lance. Yeah, maybe even over for the upside of Trey Lance over Derek Carr, but Derek Carr just keeps throwing a ton. But it really comes down to is Trey Lance. We don't care about his throwing. I had somebody post that in the waiver column. It was like, what did you see from Trey Lance throwing those ducks and ugly passes? It's like, well, great news. In fantasy, we don't care about how ugly the pass is. And on top of it, we count those rushing yards and rushing upside a hell of a lot more for the quarterback position. And that's where I'm going for the upside. I'm not going to put him in the QB1 conversation, but he'd probably be in that mix right alongside Daniel Jones for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit more pensive after you sold me on Justin Fields that time, and it really didn't work out.
Ooh. Whoa, hold on. We got a big issue. You are way too low and way disrespecting. Put me on full screen. You are, give the name respect. Tyler Haneke down at 24. Hate you, Pat. That is so wrong. You're
starting Tyler Haneke against New Orleans.
New Orleans, Daniel Jones against New Orleans. The fact is Heineke is Daniel Jones. He's that running. He's going to make some stupid mistakes because he's too aggressive, admittedly so. But Tyler Haneke is going to continue to throw and be aggressive, and he's going to continue to run and be aggressive. And there's no way on earth I'm playing Zach Wilson over him. And I would start him over Trey Lance and maybe even Matt Ryan, ? But Tyler Haneke is way too low.
Yeah, I'm not going to be budged on this one. I can see where the upside comes from, but even last week, I guess he threw for 400 yards. That game ended up going to overtime. I wouldn't expect Heineke to throw for 400 yards. The issue with the Saints is, and that's a really good game, obviously, even 27 rushing yards to add on top of it. Great game for Daniel Jones. That was by far his best game of the season. But what the Saints do, especially if they can move the ball a little bit on offense, which is really a crapshoot. It's like every other week they can sustain something. Washington's defense has not been as good as advertised whatsoever. And the offensive line for the Saints is still pretty good in this spot. So I just feel like they're a team that sucks the air out of the ball right now with the amount of running that they do and letting the clock run, that the potential for upside. I know Daniel Jones got there last week. I feel like that was a bit of an outlier in that situation. And a lot of it had to do with Barkley being really good and doing a ton of damage through the receiving game. Not to say that Gibson or even J.D. McKissick can't do that at the same time. And you do have McLaurin out there, but I just feel like the path to upside against the Saints is really tough because of their offense, weirdly enough.
And that all definitely makes sense. And to be honest, Barkley was having a slow day until later in the game and obviously overtime. But it really just comes down to, again, Tyler Haneke, just for the names in front. I'm not putting him to the QB1 conversation. It's just with the way that Tyler Haneke played. Again, Tyler Haneke is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, Tyler Haneke. Was it Finkel is Einberg or whatever the hell it is? I'm having a brain fart. What is it? Finkel is
Einhorn.
What's the other name? Einhorn. I said Einberg. I know I said Einberg. I couldn't get the right name. Yeah. That's like Jeff Feinberg. That's what it was. It's because I'm doing your show.
There we are. We can turn him into Jeff Einberg, and we can just, we can put the dog hair over, although he already has the hair. We need him to pull it back a little bit so he can look like Sean Young.
And then call him Jeff Finkel and switch him completely.
All right, that's good on quarterbacks. Let's talk defenses before we get out of here. I made some pretty radical decisions here. I have the Cowboys at number 2 in my defense rankings. It goes Patriots, Cowboys, Rams, Bucks, Cards, Panthers, Saints, Broncos, Steelers, Ravens, then Titans, Jets, who have a pass rush. Like, that's undeniable at this point. The Vikings, 49ers, and Falcons. But it's the Cowboys. You can pick them up. You can play them. Danny Thumbs on the other side, and they are bringing heat to the quarterback.
Who? The Cowboys?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if you meant that or anybody facing the Giants, but yeah, I mentioned that about the Carolina game and that the Panthers might have a little bit of trouble because of how much pass rush the Cowboys are getting. Part of it comes down to Diggs being allowed to have people set on blitzes and an extra defender because he's locking down the defenses.
No,
secondary-wise.
And Micah Parsons has really been a revelation. No one thought that he would be this good and this effective in this role so quickly. No one even thought he would play this role, ever. And now he's doing it, and it's working out fantastically for them. Even Gregory got going last week, too. So,
hey, I got him in my IDP league, so haha.
Awesome.
In your face.
I mean, I would just prefer not to play IDP and feel better about myself.
I would, too, but it's Jamie Eisenberg. How do you say no to Jamie Eisenberg?
It's easy. You say no, Jake. Say, this is a garbage format. I'm not playing it. Sorry.
All 3 of my my secondary players were hurt last week, and I didn't even. That's as far as we go, and you're talking about 12 teams with 3 defensive backs. I didn't even know some of the names I was looking at.
Awesome. Yeah. Unless you're really good on defense, I probably don't know who you are. It's not where I spend my time researching.
And that's certainly fair.
You have to be really good or really bad to be known by the fantasy community. You can't be like solid glue guy who does all the right things and makes a very formed tackle. That guy's not coming up ever.
No, but like Arnett last night, who, by the way, did the Raiders have anybody left alive in their secondary at this point?
Those dropped Denzel Perriman back from linebacker to safety, and then he can just make more tackles.
Just start Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney this week.
Yeah, it could potentially be the case. Well, I mean, Mike Williams, what was he, 3 feet taller than the guy covering? They're like, nah, we're not going to pass to you, except for that one shot where he had all the pay dirt in the world, and then it just didn't happen.
That was so frustrating, that Mike Williams game. Don't get me started on that.
Well, there was the 3 of them. There was Mike Williams, Robbie Anderson, and Odell. Those 3 guys make the catch, and all of a sudden they just have huge weeks, and just doesn't happen.
But Mike Williams is the most egregious. He's a wide receiver 1, too, and in that game with nobody to cover him. Oh, God. Move on. Didn't
need him. Just looking at quarterback hits here. Let's see, pass attempts. I'm looking at there's a free feature on runthesims.com, the advanced stats hub, if anyone ever wants to go check it out. It's pass attempts. So what do I want? I want quarterback hits versus pass attempts. Who has the most quarterback hits in the league? Who do you think are the top 5 in quarterback being hit right now?
No, the quarterback himself being hit, or the defense is forcing the hits?
No, the quarterback being hit.
Joe Burrow?
No.
Okay. Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones?
No.
On either one of them?
No. Carson Wentz.
Zach Wilson.
Big Ben, who's banged up again.
Okay, yeah.
Mac Jones and Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan was going to be one of my next guesses because of their offensive line. I would have never guessed Mac Jones.
Yeah, Burrow is like middle of the pack. He has fewer quarterback hits than Teddy Bridgewater does.
Where's Daniel Jones?
14.
Middle of the pack?
Yeah, 14. Same as Aaron Rodgers.
He takes off running.
Right around Mahomes and Kirk Cousins. I mean, some of that speaks to offensive line play. Some of this speaks to quarterbacks who don't ever get. I mean, that's sort of the problem with Matt Ryan, Roethlisberger, and Wentz.
Where does Tua stand? Not even playing for the full season. He's still got to be middle of the pack.
No, he didn't get hit much. Yeah, he had 7. Sorry, 7 in a game. And that's not even
playing the full. Yeah.
But a lot of these guys are just guys who hold on to the ball a ton. Like, it's not like, I mean, the Steelers' offensive line obviously isn't good, but Ben still shouldn't be getting hit this often. He just never. Carson Wentz
still be taking snaps.
Well, he is, and now he's dealing with another injury beyond the hip injury. Like, eventually, he's just going to break down on the field and won't be able to. Do you think they'd let him quarterback in a wheelchair?
They might, if they're not turning to Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins at this point. They might.
Interesting stuff. All right, Jake, your rankings come out Tuesday at midnight or Wednesday at 12 a.m. Eastern time, whatever. How do you properly say that?
That's why I schedule it for 12:01 a.m. So I don't have to worry about that.
So Wednesday at 12:01 a.m. Eastern time.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. thanks for being on. It's fun.
Thanks for having me for
fun.
8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, thank you for lending the viewers and myself your time for the past 8 years. I was very sick last week when I recorded the show. Poor Paul. I can hear him burping out there. He has now got what I had last week, so I feel very badly.
Burping? So burping
It's
disease?
like it's. I mean, my kids brought it back from school. It was some sort of like gastro thing that just it makes you like fart and burp, and then you'll wake up in the middle of the night and throw up a lot, and then you'll start to get better. So once you throw up, you're sort of passing. My father-in-law just got it. My wife had got it. Both the kids got it. I got it. Paul had it. It's just going around.
I feel bad for doing the poop emoji.
Yeah, it's not great news. But once you're able to like really get a good boom poop out of you, you'll be good to go. Then you start feeling better. Then I got all my energy back. I feel reinvigorated. Are you going to leave one of those life advice questions for me at thepatmayoexperience@gmail.com?
No, but everybody else should.
I actually got
time.
I said it on Monday, and I got a few like really good ones so far. I got to pick and choose now which ones I want to answer. Is Barkley trying to get into the frame, or are you trying to eat your fusion food?
She smells the fusion food.
Hi, Barkley.
It's not fusion.
Jake Ciely at
There you
All In
go.
Kid. Check him out at theathletic.com. Thank you for being on. Also, if you want some free tickets into the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings this week, I'm doing a giveaway at noon Eastern time on Wednesday on my Twitter account at @thepme. It's a super easy draw. It will take literally less than 5 seconds to do. If you're following me, you'll see it pop up and boom, the instructions will be up there. So I recommend that you do that if you want to try to win a free entry into the Millionaire Maker. Sub to the newsletter as well, because there's always giveaways in there. Smash like, sub to the channel. Thank you for watching. Ranks in the description and up on DKNation.com. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!